It says the meeting is now streaming live, so.
Ooh.
Setting up your.
It says the meeting is now streaming live, so.
Okay, I need to hit pause. Setting up your.
It says the meeting is now streaming live, so.
Okay,
I tend to repeat myself, apparently.
How many times did you actually say it?
Yeah.
Once.
Real?
I tend to repeat myself, apparently.
How many times did you actually say it?
Oh, yeah.
Once.
Real? It'll be a long one.
It's getting multiple times.
I tend to repeat myself, apparently.
Feedback on speakers.
How many times did you actually?
I want to make sure.
There's a trouble with this. If I can't play solitaire or anything, you'll see it up on the screen.
Okay.
I always suspected them they were doing when I was in the audience.
That's why I have two screens.
Well, you're fancy. I do too, but the other one is pretty small.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Ready, John, with YouTube? Okay. All right, so it is now 6 o'clock, and I would like to call the meeting to order. Betsy, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Mrs. Petrie,
Yes.
Wait.
Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Schuschler,
Yes.
Mrs. Oshie,
Yes.
Mrs. Saharsky,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welker.
Yes. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the agenda as,
So
Oh,
moved.
there it is. Okay. My gosh, that was all.
thank you, Beth.
All right. Yeah.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you very much. Any discussion on the agenda? All right, then we'll take a vote to approve the agenda. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Petrie,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Schuschler,
Yes.
Mrs. Oshie,
Yes.
Mrs. Saharsky,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welker.
Yes, thank you. We'll take a moment to move into public comments. I think one person, Mr. Danny Ash, who would like to address the board in regards to students going back. Will we see him? Okay, here he comes. Connecting, so we'll give him a second. Okay, Mr. Ash, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just want to give you a little update on board policy on how this works. You will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board per policy BDDH. We ask that you limit your comments to the topic that is appropriate to bring before the board, and understand that I might have to interrupt if your comments stray into something that should be open or discussed in open session. And finally, the board is protected by the Missouri Sunshine Law, and it is unlikely members will be able to respond to your comments at this time. I will be timing you for 3 minutes, so you may now address the board, and I'll start the timer.
Well, it's time for these kids to go back to school. The education that they've received throughout the year is, I would say, subpar. The kids are behind. They need to go back full time to start actually get an education. Why we are waiting till now to even think about having this meeting? We should have had this already set in place to send them back full time back before Christmas break. Why we have to have a meeting now, I do not understand. Other districts in the area have been going full time and have successfully done it. I've talked to parents and other people like that from other schools, and they are very satisfied with what they've had. But yet at Hillsborough, we seem to be sitting on the sidelines waiting on to see what happens with other districts. And instead of, making efforts to move forward, we sit and wait while our kids suffer. If staffing is the problem, well, that's not my problem. If there's low staff, if you're sick, you still go to the hospital regardless of the amount of staff that's there. They don't turn you away. If this is a small community that's 2 income families most of the time, it's hard for people to take off to try to teach their kids. Everybody works and they have to try to teach their kids in the evenings. The younger kids don't even know how to read, most of them. So you have to do all of it themselves or for them, because they don't understand what their teachers are asking. The lesson plans are, I would say, just busy work. The lack of education. I'm very disappointed in how the school has handled this whole COVID pandemic. It's time to go back. I mean, if we can pack kids in daycares, we can send kids to school. If we can cram people in an airplane like sardines and wear masks and fly around the country, we can go to school. There should be no reason why these kids aren't in school at this current moment. And that's about all I have to say on that. And the other thing is COVID's not going anywhere. So we're going to have to learn to live with it. If people are going to take vaccinations, some people aren't. People are going to get it. If you're sick, you don't come to school. But I don't understand why we're not back in school. We should have been back in school a long time ago.
Okay. Thank you for your opinion and addressing the board this evening. We appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move into new business. The agenda cites it as having a discussion and a motion to approve reentry plan changes. So I'll need a motion to approve the reentry plan changes effective January 19, 2021 for students in kindergarten through 12th grade to attend school 4 days a week in person, with Wednesday remaining as a virtual day.
Move.
So I have John as a first, Beth second. Is that correct?
Good enough.
Okay. Let's hear from Dr. Isaacson first. He has some things to address with us, and then we'll let board members start the discussion.
Just a couple things. As you know, on October 15th, we had made the recommendation to come back 4 days on November 16th, K through 6, with our high schoolers planning to be after that. And right about that time, we had a significant increase, not just in our students, but as well as our staff. That was kind of congruent with what occurred in the county. Right now, in since then, we've kind of leveled off. Today, coming out of Christmas break, we have 9 staff out and 56 students quarantined. And we agree with Mr. Ash. I mean, our goal is to get students back in school. There's no difference. Being out of school 2 days a week isn't as good as being in person. Otherwise, schools would just have been doing that for a long time. Our recommendation, though, I think it is, I'm worried about it from the standpoint is we know there's been some consistency with the hybrid where we haven't had to, parents knew the schedule of what was going to occur. Other districts have struggled to stay open. We're probably going to have those same struggles. I'm hoping that it doesn't. But I know that with our numbers now and the things in place, and the board is work to hire more bus drivers, that I don't have a huge fear of students' school spread. That's been kind of shown, not just in our district, on the information thus far, is we haven't had a large spread in school, and even schools coming, being in school 4 or 5 days a week, haven't had the school spread thus far. What we will have coming back 4 days is students are not going to be able to socially distance. So there are going to be some changes for our kids. Is masks will be required anytime that you can't social distance. And that's going to be most of the day. So masks will be required in classroom and in settings that up till now that we have not had. That's going to create some issues, but I know like at our elementary levels, they'll create some mask breaks. I have no doubt. At the high school level, they have to wear them properly. And the mask issue for us to go, I know it's been of great debate, but kids are going to have to wear a mask here. And if they choose not to, then they really probably ought to choose the virtual instruction at this time for second semester. And so it'll be treated as a dress code. It hasn't been an issue, but also kids haven't had to wear them all day long. As far as on the bus, they'll have to wear them at all times. And we're just going to need parents to be flexible with us. I don't foresee any type of long-term virtual shutdown, but potentially like other districts have done this past fall, is maybe there may be a couple days where we have to shut down. Or if we don't have enough bus drivers, I know Mr. Ash said that there's, they don't turn away someone at a hospital. They don't. But it takes somebody with a CDL driver's license to drive a bus. You have to have a license to do that. And if we don't have those individuals, we don't have those individuals. And so we're going to do the very best we can. And closing school and going all virtual will be a last resort. Do I foresee a lot of that? No, but the potential is there. The potential is there, but I'm hopeful that it is, and I'm hopeful that we're able to withstand school. Staffing will be the number one issue that we would have to close. Our number of student quarantines cumulatively combined with students and staff is at 642. That's going to go up significantly. Parents have to be prepared for that when you can't socially distance up until this point, we've had very few quarantines due to school, just in the lunchroom and a few in the classroom. So though, especially at the secondary level, there will be a larger number of quarantines, like the examples that we showed at the beginning of the year. But that's going to be hit and miss. Other schools are doing it, absolutely. And it'll be hit and miss. Some kids won't get quarantined at all. Some kids may get quarantined 3 times and everything in between. But what you're talking about when I look at second semester, and I'll use my son as an example, if you have 16 weeks of school, he's going to go to school 32 times if we stay in the hybrid. So 32 days is kind of if he's able, even if he gets quarantined once, if he goes to school more than 32 days, you can make an argument that that was better than being in the hybrid. And being in school every day is important for kids. So we'll continue to treat our snow days as usual. So a little cautious, but I think to like what we talked about in November, if not now, when? The numbers have leveled out. It's been fairly consistent. And even as they go up, we've experienced it to try to figure out a way to deal with it. Previously, I had recommended the elementary start first and then the high school. With the semester, it's just a natural break to start everyone, rather than waiting till the third quarter and such. So recommending going 4 days and leaving the Wednesday virtual. You may be asking, well, why leave the Wednesday virtual? is we're still going to have a substantial number of students who are on virtual. And quite frankly, and we're going to have kids who are out on quarantine. So our teachers are going to have to be doing lessons and communicating with those students, and especially at the secondary level when we don't have dedicated full day virtual teachers. They're going to have to be able to have that time to make those lessons and communicate with them. And so that's going to be a necessary period of time. In addition to that is not being in that school that Wednesday. Inadvertently, that has been kind of key, even in our hybrid, to reducing our number of quarantines in the middle of the week. Because if a student finds they have symptoms on Tuesday, when they're going back 48 hours, you're only catching, that Monday. So you're reducing the amount of look back time. So I think that that's another reason. And so this recommendation would be for the remainder of the year on the 4-day week at this point. If there would be additional changes, then we come back and revisit if there's substantial movement and where the health department's kind of like, there's no quarantines and there's giving us the all clear on the health side. Are there any questions?
What they've got, 3 states now that have this new, more easily transmissible form. If that should impact us, we could see a larger increase in cases, and that worries me. Right now, hybrid works. I know it's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. And I still don't like the idea of bouncing parents around. If we do have to shut down, then they have to make, a change in childcare, and that's not good. I mean, they have to be ready to turn on a dime, literally. Those are concerns I have.
I have to piggyback off what Renee said. The one thing that I've been going back and forth in my head is the consistency. Right now, parents have a plan and they can work on that plan and they can follow that plan. And, there's going to be times whenever we are 4 days a week where they could potentially get that phone call at 6:00 at night that says tomorrow's a hybrid day. And then we're asking them to be very flexible with us. And I know parents will do the best they can at being flexible, but we're asking them to make adjustments in their schedules. Hybrid's been very consistent. They've been able to put together a plan and stick to that plan the whole first semester. My kids, I know, do well with the schedule that we have in place. I know they'll do well 4 days a week. I know the teeter-tottering back and forth that could potentially happen, that to me is going to be more harmful, I know, to my own children. Just because it's going to be hard, finding a babysitter, who's going to watch them, who's going to stay home with them, who's going to help them through their lessons today, because neither one of us were planning to be here. We were both going to be in the office today. So I know the consistency is the biggest thing that's weighing heavy on me. I know some of the other districts that have gone back, again, they've had to close the doors for a few days at a time. They've had to, go from 4 days to 2 days to 1 day. And so that's a lot of inconsistency. And so that is my primary worry right now is that.
Well, and I keep going back to the statement that Rob made at the last meeting. I'm putting this on you. That, looking at 7, which is kind of what Angie is to, that, hybrid seat, 4-day seat, all virtual shutdown and all that kind of thing. And, with what we've done, we have been able to be consistent. And I realize that, we're going to be the only school in Jefferson County if we remain hybrid. But for me personally, I've been in this spot for 7 years. This decision has probably, it's the toughest decision that I'm going to make, the toughest vote. And we've been through challenging times over the last few years, but I sleep over it thinking, oh my, I've reached numerous staff, parents, students within our district, within other districts, even across the state. And I'm not even going to all want to be back. There's a few students that like the virtual. So most people do want to be back. Staff, administrators, everybody pretty much does want to be back. In fact, in all the people that I talked with personally, there was really only one person that was pretty adamant that I want to go back and I accept all of those risks. Pretty much everybody else, we started with that conversation and I was basically listening. I wanted people's input. And so they started, I want to go back. I want my kids back in school, but, and there was the word, and everybody ended up with that. There's not going to be any social distancing. That worries me. Masks will have to be worn all the time. That worries me. And some kids aren't. The students that I talked to, especially in secondary, commented that, it's going to be worse because some of the kids aren't even wearing them correctly now, and they don't have to wear them all the time. Several students commented, is it worth going through several quarantines? Because we still have the quarantine protocol in place. Bottom line, they do not go all virtual. They do not want, to go through the shutdown. That hybrid has kept us in the position we are now. I reached out to teachers wanting to know curriculum. Where are you in your curriculum now versus past? Really and truly honest, straightforward, kind of keep it simple. And most of them responded, yeah, there's a few struggles here and there. We're on target in this seemed to be an area that more struggles, but they pretty much said they are pretty close to the benchmarks that they needed to be. And one person I and this is a teacher talking, obviously, that we'll pull our magic and we will make it work for these kids. The other concern was Renee mentioned the strain. We're still in the middle of flu season, and even though flu is not the big word on the news, people are coming into medical facilities, clinics, hospitals, etc., with flu and testing positive for flu and COVID both. So there's lots and lots of concern, and I was hoping that after I talked with all those people, that it would solidify what I needed to vote tonight. And you know what? It did, but it didn't. Like I said earlier, this in my 7 years is the hardest vote to make. I don't envy administrators.
Can I be the fair and balanced response to Beth?
Go ahead.
So I'm coming from a parent of a child who has excelled through this hybrid, who her peer group has excelled through this hybrid. In fact, talking at the dinner table the other night about this and how we would be the only school that was hybrid, my daughter said, Dad, if your friend jumped off a bridge, would you follow him?
Yeah.
However, I have not talked to anyone that wants to stay hybrid. Everyone I've talked to wants to be back in school. I'm going to have to not completely agree with that we're on a benchmark with our students, because we have 2 to 3 times the number of Fs that we've ever had. And while my child and her peer group is excelling through this, there is a part of our student community that is not, that whether it be just struggling with internet or just the home schooling or not having parental support, whatever that be, we've got kids that are failing a lot of them. We have kids that, yes, we have food pickup, but that's only if a parent or someone will pick it up for them. We've got kids that need food. You know, they say that one of the safest places to be is at school. And while I was at the hybrid at one point, but time has come that this isn't going away. We need to get used to working with it, and we can't let our kids fall any further behind. And I would rather give those kids that are struggling the extra chance to be in school with the chance that we might have to figure something out last minute. Unfortunately, I can't find where I put my parent guide, but I think there's a chapter about things come up when you're a parent that you just got to figure out. But I really think the kids need to be in school. I know that my daughter's basketball team might get quarantined and miss 2 weeks of basketball. I know the entire classrooms might get quarantined. Sometimes life stinks, but I think we need to be in school.
I would say if you believe that this virus is going to mutate a lot, and it seems to have that capability, you guys are arguing for hybrid forever at this point, because vaccines are not going to cut it then. It's going to be as good as a flu shot, maybe 25% effective on any given year.
Maybe not.
We can't plan for hybrid forever and then claim that it's, you know, a superior schooling after the fact. I mean, right now, the stats don't seem to support that. And we're in the business of education primarily. My position's been clear throughout this, but we need to make the effort to give a chance for kids to have the best education possible.
Well, I remember at the beginning when we were being persuaded to move into the hybrid plan, we talked about smaller class sizes, that there weren't going to be as many kids in a classroom, which creates more space so we can social distance. But as a teacher, I also know that we have fought for years for smaller class sizes, because I can do my job better if I have fewer students to work with. My students will get more one-on-one attention in a smaller class size. So not only will they be safer, but they have more opportunity to learn in that case. There's also fewer discipline problems in these smaller class sizes. There's not as many behavior issues. And because we are doing this hybrid, we're able to compact our curriculum. We've taken out the fluff pieces. We get right to the point. We take care of business and we do what we're supposed to with that. There's also fewer interruptions. That's what schools across the state have done when they've changed their 5-day-a-week plan. They get rid of all of that stuff. And maybe we need to work harder in that area. Maybe our teachers who were thrown into this at the very beginning without a lot of training, without a lot of help, need more help in regard to making better virtual lessons. And that could be the problem in this case. If people believe that the curriculum or the lessons are subpar, I take offense to that to some degree, because teachers are working very hard to present really good lessons for our kids. But when kids don't get on the computer, they don't log in, or they have a conference with an administrator who says, you need to do this, or you need to have your child log in, and they don't get any support. You really think that's going to change when they come to school face to face? As a teacher for 30 years, I know there were lots of kids who were there face to face and still didn't do anything. They still had failing grades. They still didn't have that support at home. Teachers don't have a magic wand to make it all way, and all of a sudden their grades are wonderful. That's not how it works.
No.
And
I didn't say they had a magic wand. And I'm not saying that everyone will succeed at 4 days.
no,
I'm
they
saying that
won't.
and that's not what I said, but the best
I didn't
education
say you
possible.
did.
Okay. You said you took offense. So
Well, it wasn't at you. Sorry.
Okay.
I wasn't
Well,
implying that.
The
I'm
only
just-
thing is, there was only a percentage of the failing grades before that we have now. So looking at the data, if they're in school.
And that's what I'm saying. we need to
Looking at the
change way
data,
we
if they're
do
in
things.
school, then they should have less failing students.
Good.
I don't know. Do you have data to back that up to show me that?
A lot of failures occur.
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah,
there's-
we were given the sheet
Yeah,
with all
we were
the,
given
all the
that
Fs
sheet.
Not
by
lately.
grade.
And we also talked about how every time when you get to the end of a quarter or the end of a semester, you get close to that. You find out, oh, so-and-so is at this point, and they work with that student really hard. And then all of a sudden his grades come up. That happens a lot. These students had been left on their own to some degree, but we have lots of students who are in virtual, 100% virtual classes who are being very successful.
Yes.
So how
Oh,
do
I
you
agree. My daughter is doing awesome. She would
Yeah,
hate
but
to go
she's
back to
still
4
there
days.
2 days a week, and she has family that will support her, or she's already very intelligent and knows how to be disciplined to do it herself. That in itself is a learned behavior. We're teaching kids that kind of thing too. And since we've been in hybrid, we've been able to push our technology. We're now at 1-to-1 with our kids. And I think that's amazing, and that we're teaching our kids more computer skills at a younger age. Yeah, they started off poorly, but I think things have improved in that regard. Kids are learning how to do those things, and so are teachers. Teachers need more as well. The beginning of the year, they didn't know how to use Google Classroom very well. I mean, I'm an old schooler. I've been retired for 7 years, and I knew how to use Google Classroom before I left. But there were people who had never used it once. There were administrators that didn't know how to look at a teacher's Google Classroom. They thought they needed an Evite to get in to see it. So all the way around the board, people need training. And training means you're going to have that technology and that Chromebook with you when you're getting that training, not just sitting there listening to a teacher say, well, this is what I did, and I did this. And that's the end of the training, because that happened as well. So some of that is on our shoulders, not necessarily the kids when it comes to the lessons. But I did talk to teachers. I talked to several, and they also said that they are on the pacing guide for curriculum. They're basically at the same point they would have been if they were in person, teaching the same lessons that they would have used last year. So that tells me our teachers are pushing and they are doing what they're supposed to do. And being consistent and having that structure, whether with the hybrid or whatever, that's so important. People forget that. And parents and teachers both need to maintain that form of communication. Relationships are so important. And teachers are building those in their smaller class sizes. And even our virtual teachers are doing that. They're having one-on-one Zoom meetings with our kids. But if a kid doesn't show up for his Zoom meeting or doesn't turn in assignments, it makes it harder. And I know administrators are making home visits. They're making phone calls. They're trying more Zoom meetings, but not being very successful because sometimes the families aren't receptive. It's not important to them. And I don't want to risk the health of my teachers because
I
of
don't either.
In fact, I talked to a teacher today who's just returned from COVID sickness. She's been gone for a really long time. She got the COVID from a student, and she now has a long-term illness with pulmonary disease and heart issues. And the doctors don't know if she'll ever get better, that it could be a permanent thing. And I know of an administrator who worked with young students, helping them on their Chromebooks, and got COVID because the administrator was on the Chromebook helping the kids, and then he took it home to every one of his family members who got COVID. Same thing with the special ed teacher who got COVID from one of her students. Went home, she didn't have it very badly, but her husband did, had a fever for more than 25 days, still to this day has breathing issues. Those are concerns that I have for my staff, my bus drivers, and for family members of our students. You know, grandma gets it, that could be a life or death situation. And I'm not willing to risk that. Do we need to up our game, amp up our technology, give more training to our teachers so that lessons can be better? I'm all for that, absolutely. Our Wednesdays should be full of that. And administrators should definitely be evaluating teachers on in-person lessons, but also on their Google Classroom and their online lessons. And I have a feeling that's not happening a lot. So
Why did we, my question is why did we bother with the farm? Vocational training like that cannot be hybrid permanently. You can't learn virtually any skill that requires hands-on.
you can't learn something days a week, but you can only do it in 4 days a week?
It requires continual practice. That's how you get good at things hands-on.
Which is true. And John, I was a vocational teacher. And, you know, throughout this process, I've thought, God, how would I be doing it? And if I was cut down to two days a week, a hybrid situation as a vocational teacher, when they were in my classroom, that's when we're doing the hands-on. When they are at home doing the virtual aspect, that's when they're doing the backup information that supports that. So it can be done.
Structure of the lesson.
Yeah.
How the
Yes.
lesson
And,
is,
you know, as a high school teacher, I'm going to kind of comment on Lisa's as well. The last 2 weeks of a semester, of a quarter, my gosh, the number of students that all of a sudden, you know, pull their grades out because they haven't turned in assignments. And, you know, now they have that motivation to do so. So, yes, I looked at all that information, the data, but I know that if we had data by the end of next week, those Fs, especially in the secondary level, are going to be a lot less than what they are, you know, right now. And if,
grades change every day.
Yes,
if
and
there
I would venture to say that most of those failing grades are because of assignments not turned in.
probably so.
And once those assignments get turned in, those grades go up. It's not because they can't learn, it's because they're not doing the work. And that was my experience as a high school teacher. The kids that failed were the kids that did not do the work. Being in school 2 days, being in school 4 days, that is not going to make an enormous difference for those students. They have to have the motivation to do the work, and they have to have parent support. And, you know, Rob's daughter is succeeding because she's got Rob there behind her. I mean, that's part of why she's succeeding. Now, she's probably also, you know, an exceptional student anyway. My grandkids are succeeding, but they have parent support. And that is crucial, no matter how many days we go to school.
Right, but we're not going to get parental support for all these kids. And another thing we haven't talked about, John, I don't know how many families are still struggling with like being able to even log in. I live 6 minutes from school and I have to come to the office to do this Zoom meeting because and my daughter has to come to the office at times because she can't get a signal where we live on a hotspot on our satellite internet or anything. So I feel for the kids that can't hardly even log in as close as I am to the building, but
she is in school 2 days a week, Rob, where those issues can be resolved.
Well, I was also contacted by 2 nurses who are parents in the district, and they both strongly urged that we stay in the hybrid because of the mutations that are happening today. The strain is going to be different.
Yes.
People are going to be way more susceptible to it. And I look at the bigger picture. you know, the United Kingdom and countries in Africa and Italy and China, they've all had 2 shutdowns. We haven't had that yet. But word on the street is that after Inauguration Day, that's going to happen. That it's very possible we'll have 6 weeks of shutdown where we have to be virtual. So we have got to maintain our skills online and our virtual skills. We have to keep upping our game where that's concerned. And I'm sorry, people may not want to hear this, but there's going to be more and more students online taking virtual classes and more virtual classes being offered as we go. I mean, I look at colleges now, junior college, how many more of those things are online? It's moving down the pipe. We have to be better prepared for that. And we're not doing a very good job with that, I don't think.
Okay, now you're just talking about
Teachers.
following the trend.
Pardon me?
Now you're just talking about following the trend.
No, I'm not talking about following a trend. I'm just saying we need to work on those skills. And by staying in the hybrid situation, we have more virtual teachers and our people are going to learn and they're going to improve. And we've seen that improvement. Look at how we were at the beginning versus now. We've come a long way. Not saying we're there yet, but this is going to be important. This technology is going to be an integral part of education from now on. Look at how many jobs and businesses are now, people are now working from home full time, and businesses have said, we're not going to go back to an office. Stay at home, online. My son is one of those, works from home 5 days a week and never goes into an office.
My daughter-in-law works 5 days a week from home for Energizer. They don't get their employees back until May.
Hey, John, what's the percentage of our students that go to college? Because I know a large percentage go straight into vocation, and so they really need more hands-on training. I believe it's fairly high, isn't it?
I'm going to defer to Ms. Hildebrand. I don't mean to catch you off guard, but can you assist with do you have a?
It's going to vary from year to year. I would say on average, it's probably close to 70-75%.
That do or don't?
That do, but that's going to be
Okay.
on the high end, but average wise.
Mm.
Did they go to college for vocational programs? Is
When
that,
you
you know
talk
that,
about
or?
college, I'm not just referring to 4-year. I'm talking to a junior college. So that, yes, that could include a fire science program at Jeffco or something of that nature. But straight out into the workforce in the military, leaving those out, I would say close to 72% on average.
Because I know I would have a hard time learning how to be an HVAC tech on an online school, or being a carpenter, or how to fix a diesel truck, which are all important, all good careers.
They wouldn't be there in the classroom every day, just like we're not in the hybrid. They would have those days where they would be on a job site or in a classroom working hands-on. It's how my husband did the apprenticeship with it for his carpenter journeyman. He wasn't in the classroom all the time. He was part of the time, which is a hybrid plan.
So let me kind of chime in here. I've been trying for a little while and I can't get in, but
You've been patient, Eric.
I have been. So I'm going to echo what Rob said a while back. You know, my 3 are doing well, but you know, as Rob said, that's not the case with everyone. You know, they've got me, and they've got, you know, their mom who's a teacher. You know, to ride them and make sure they get things done. You know, the thought of going back forward does concern me. Like I said, I've got 3 kids and a wife who will be in there 4 days a week. You know, but you know, if we take the proper precautions, that's going to be minimized. You know, my job, I go into a facility multiple times a month that is pretty much a hotbed for COVID. And I do have patient contact time. So, you have to take the right precautions, mask, wash hands, distance when you can. But this, unfortunately, is the new normal. We're going to be dealing with this. This isn't going away. Whether there's a mutation, whether there's this or that. I mean, the vaccine, they're not even sure how long it's going to last right now. They're not sure how long the immunity is going to last from it.
Really works.
Or exactly. So, my fear is, okay, we stay in a hybrid right now. Well, what happens in the fall? Are we having the same conversation then because the virus has mutated 3 more times? I think I think we have to give it a shot and go to 4 days. And if we have to go back to a hybrid, we have to go back to a hybrid, and we can say, we tried our best. Does that come with increased risk? Yes, but so does going to Walmart. So does going to the grocery store. And it's unfortunate, but like I said, that is the reality that we live in right now. Everything we do, everywhere we go, carries a risk. Every person we come into contact with carries a risk. You have to be careful of who your group, for lack of a better word, is, who you're visiting, who you're hanging out with. You have to be cognizant of that now. So, I think for our students that are struggling, I think that for our parents that are forced to stay home and aren't able to work, have a second income for their household, I think for them, we at least need to try it. If it doesn't work, great. And you guys can say, hey, I told you so. But that's my thought.
Anybody else have any other things they want to share?
Whenever we look at what's best for students, and I've been sitting here listening to everyone's opinions, but whenever you truly look at what's best for students, having them in school is truly what's best for them. Having them in that classroom seat, face to face with their teachers and administrators, with their peers, right? That one-on-one interaction. That's truly what's best for our students. And this is a really hard decision. There's so many factors that can be weighed, pros, cons, back and forth. And if we do go to 4 days a week, the one thing I would ask is that, our parents be flexible with us, because there are going to be times when we may have to call school off. There's going to be times when, adjustments are going to have to be made. And I hope that, if we go to 4 days a week, that our community understands that we're trying, but I do expect and hope that they're very flexible with us. So.
Well, I know it's not a decision that any of us have taken lightly, and that we have struggled with it, and we have listened to both sides of the argument. And it's not a decision that any of us ever expected to have to make. Mm-hmm. And it's extremely difficult. Okay. So I guess that gets us to a roll call vote. The motion on the floor then is to approve the reentry plan changes that would be effective January 19, 2021 for students in kindergarten through 12th grade to attend school 4 days a week in person, and Wednesday will remain a virtual day. So Betsy, let's take a roll call.
Mrs. Petrie.
Very respectfully, no.
Okay, Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Schuschler,
Yes.
Mrs. Oshie,
Yes.
Mrs. Saharsky,
No.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welker.
No. Motion then carries 4-3. That's the only thing on our agenda for this evening. So I'll take a roll call vote then, or a motion to recess into executive session. Do I have a motion for that?
I move.
Thank you, Renee, and I don't know who the second one. I see Beth's hand.
Sorry to be, what's the word, bureaucratic, but do we have the reasons for recessing into executive?
Yes?
Yes, was in the agenda.
Oh, no, I
was.
meant stated for public purposes. That's all.
Yes.
So we are closing open session and moving into executive session in accordance with Missouri Statute 610, 0.21, as agenda items relate to the following: leasing, purchasing, or sale of real estate, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promotion of employees.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any discussion on that motion? All right, roll call then, please. Betsy?
Mrs. Petrie,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Schuschler,
Yeah,
Mrs. Oshie,
Yes.
Mrs. Saharsky,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welker.
Yes.
I need to stop the YouTube now that we are in live. Good evening, everyone.